guys.
Tips.
Practical tips on how to improve some of these areas of communication. And we're going to kick it off with verbal communication. So I'll start it off. One tip, or tip number one, to start improving your verbal communication. Listen. And I think Mayan had some. I think Mayan had some color to add to that.
Yes, I would brighten it up more so than just listening, but to actively listen. So when you think about actively listening, the analogy that I used was with swimming. Swimming is a full body workout. Like you can't, if you don't wiggle your toes, you may sink. And in actively listening, you've got to be watching and paying attention to the person that you're speaking to. Or even if it's something written, you've got to have paid attention to who you're sending the message to. And for HRs, you know, if I'm sending my resume, how do you like the resumes formatted? Maybe that format is different. It's for this company, it needs to be like this, and for that company, it needs to be like that. So for me, I need to pay attention, i.e., looking at the person or just paying attention to what they do. I need to actually physically listen, hear what they're saying. I need to try to give little feedback as they're going so they know that I'm understanding, or maybe they realize throughout that communication that I don't understand, and then they can kind of adjust what they're doing.
Right.
If you wait till they're finished completely, then you may have missed completely what they're saying. So I would say good tips, pay attention to the person giving the message. I would say physically listen to that person, whoever that is giving the message, but then also completely left me. But you want to be engaged. Oh, that's what it is. You want to be engaged.
Gotcha.
And engaged with filler words. And as you're giving those filler words, it could be as much as, oh, I see. Or even, you know, if they said something, repeat the last piece of what they said. Oh, you said Black Panther. Okay, exactly. Then you say, yeah, that movie was great.
So acknowledge that you heard.
Yes.
What there's, and that you're receiving it and processing it.
Yes.
You got a tip?
Yeah, I think you got to be aware of who you're talking to.
Totally.
If I was trying to sell an idea to you guys, you're educated, you're articulate, so well spoken. I might present it one way. If I went to a kindergarten classroom, while I wouldn't change whatever the concept was, I would change the way that I delivered it. And I still would want maybe some similar responses. So I think I need to think about the listener. I read something a while back that said effective communication is audience-centered.
So true.
Yeah.
So true.
That's interesting.
So true.
So number one, active listening. Actively listen to the person of the group that you're communicating with. Tip number two, be aware of your audience.
Yes.
All right. Do you have a tip?
I would say listen for the feedback that's coming in, you know, and that's part of actively listening. But when you're sending that message and listening for that feedback, you can then adjust your message as need be. Maybe you go into the kindergarten class thinking it's a kindergarten class, and maybe they've mixed in some fifth graders.
Right.
Well, if you went with specifically a kindergarten message, well, now you've lost the fifth graders. You've got to be able to say, okay, they're understanding what I'm saying. I can adjust here on the fly, but still get that message across.
Right. I think another one that I would add in there is to be clear in your communication. Well, let's combine two into a number four. Be clear. Think before you speak and be clear. So, and it's interesting, man, because not everyone is good at just kind of in the moment, off the cuff verbal communication. Some people need time to just like process and think before they really respond.
Right.
You know, all of our minds kind of work differently. We have different strengths and weaknesses. Right. And so not everyone is good at that. We're having a conversation. It's something important. Hey, I need an answer from you. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's okay to just say in the moment, you know, I'm listening and I'm understanding what you're saying. I have some thoughts on that, but I need some time to kind of process it and get back with you.
Sometimes you wish people would think before they respond.
Yes.
True.
Like, that was dumb as don't know what.
Right.
Another tip that I would add would be control the communicative environment. And when you think about controlling the communicative environment, maybe you are relaying message that may not be received well, no matter what it is. And the person that you're talking to may become enraged or upset about whatever. So now that's where you maintain a tone that keeps the energy level down. Maybe you use a pace that's not too fast that would allow the person who is listening to really receive that message. Maybe you completely change the environment in which they're, a hostile environment or an environment where somebody may feel some kind of way. You take them out of the office and you take them into the cafeteria or out into the lobby or whatever the case. But I would say to control the communicative environment so then that way your message is always the message that is conveyed. Because when you think about sending information, you want a specific result. They are going to do whatever they're going to do, but you need to communicate so that way you can get the specific result that you're shooting for.
Right.
And part of that is controlling that environment.
Okay. Those are pretty good. So, quick recap, tips to improve your verbal communication. Actively listen. Tip number 1. Tip number 2, be aware of your audience. Tip number 3, feedback. Listen for feedback, give feedback. Tip number 4, think before you speak and speak clearly. Right. And tip number 5, which mine gave, was
control the communicative environment.
Control the communicative environment. I want to talk to my introverts. Introverts. I know we're doing a podcast, but believe it or not, I am one. This is a way that I'm controlling my communicative environment.
That is exactly right. That is exactly right.
Yeah, man, like feedback. Introverts often have a hard time, stressful time in one-on-one communication, depending on who it is. If it's someone you're comfortable with, it's easy. Okay. But let's say it's a boss. Let's say it's a new coworker. Right. There's a level of anxiety that would just skyrocket in those situations.
Right.
Group conversations, ooh. No. I'm going into the corner. We're going to shell off over here, right? But that doesn't do much when you're trying to improve your standing at work, also kind of create a positive image.
Right.
When you're also trying to create the exposure, right? And you're also trying to couple all of that with your performance every day to get noticed by the bosses so that you can begin to get pulled up the ladder. So, a couple of tips for our introverts on how you can improve verbal communication. And one is communicate daily. You have to practice it.
Got to.
You know what I mean? That technically goes for everybody else.
Yeah.
All of the stuff that we talk about, you have to practice. I played basketball for several years in high school. And I mean, even now, like every now and then, I haven't played in a while, but I do rec. But even still, if there's a skill that you want to be better at, how do you do it? You have to practice it.
Perfect practice makes perfect.
Yeah, you have to get the reps in. And so when it comes to verbal communication, communicate daily. Practical tip there, like find someone you're comfortable with at work. It's just kind of just have daily conversations with them.
Yeah.
It'll get you comfortable with just using the words back and forth, right? Another tip, learn to let pauses live.
Yeah.
Another point of anxiety can be when a conversation has paused awkwardly.
I've got to fill the space with something.
Yeah. The bells start going off in your head. Sweat starts trickling, and you're wondering what's happening, right? Just let it live. Allow your thoughts to gather themselves, in a manner where the pause is okay, And then after the pause, you have something clear and concise to kind of communicate.
Right.
Right. One more thing. Know your strengths.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
If you know that being in a crowded room and having to communicate with people is just a stressor, find 2 or 3 people in that space that you can be comfortable with.
Right.
Corner them off, and then that's where your conversation begins.
Exactly.
You'd be surprised how you can kind of maneuver around a room that way.
To add to that, just for your own personal growth in your communicative skills, even to measure and see if you're improving, I would do a SWOT analysis on myself as a communicator.
Absolutely.
The S being the strengths, the W being the weaknesses, the O's being the opportunities, and the T's being the threats. Where am I strong? Where am I weak? Where would I have opportunities to actually practice or to really use my communicative skills? And threats, where am I most nervous? So then that way I can avoid those, favor more to the opportunities, and then build upon the strengths that I have and decrease the weaknesses that I might have.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
All right, let's jump to tips to improve written communication.
Okay, can I add one more to your introvert?
Go.
We didn't talk about the extroverts.
Let's talk about them.
Okay, extroverts, God bless you.
Yes.
I'm actually a closet introvert, but I have a high performance switch
There you go.
because I was made to go to church and say all my little Bible verses.
Yeah,
and stand up in front. Hated it.
Yeah.
But we learned to perform. So I'm a stage person. Love being on stage, hate being in the crowd.
Yep.
But nobody knows that because stage performers, there's so many comedians that are
Super
introverts. You analytical introverts, but on stage they flip a switch and you're laughing and whatever.
Ready to go.
Yeah. So extroverts, God bless you. Extroverts go to the store and they talk out loud. I wonder if I need some sugar to go with the sour cream. They're out loud as they're looking at the dairy products. That's fine because they actually process while they're verbalizing. Their ability to verbalize helps them process. Now what happens is the introvert's analytical, the extrovert is doing it out loud, and extroverts, it would be okay if you let the introverts have some air.
Yeah, that is true.
That would be okay. But we've all got to realize that or respect the other person regardless of their style.
Yes,
Oh, absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
But an extrovert will suck all the air out of a room, and the introvert introvert is like, yeah, go ahead, take it.
Right.
I'm gonna be over here sitting there.
Right, I wait my turn, but if it don't come, I'm okay.
Yeah.
All right. Tips to improve written communication.
Proofread.
There you go.
You got to.
That's it. Tip number 1. Proofread.
Write often. Write often.
I like that.
Part of that improving your writing skills, from proofreading and not making grammatical errors to using good semantics, writing as often as you can, so then that way you can develop the skill. If you are a speller or not a speller and you need help with that, that'll help you learn how to spell words correctly. But I would just say write as often as you can. Write anything. You could be just taking notes from your favorite television show, but just the physical act of writing something down and making your points, and then also making sure that you're doing it in a grammatically correct way, that will definitely help you.
So I have a tip to help with grammar. Not all of us were English stars in high school and college. Some people hated it. You know what I'm saying?
I loved it.
Yeah, I mean, I did too. I still do. There's this program, this software that you can install on your browser called Grammarly. Okay, and the way it works is when you pull up. So I use Gmail, for example, right? So I have Grammarly installed on my Chrome browser, right? I pull up Gmail, I start typing. Grammarly is over there analyzing while I'm typing. And once I finish a sentence, it'll let me know if it's grammatically correct or not. And if I don't pay attention to it and I type a whole paragraph or 2 or 3 paragraphs at the end, it'll show me my potential errors.
Yeah.
And then it'll start pointing it out, and I can go back and rearrange words, take out words, spell check, and all of that as I'm kind of putting that document together. So what I would say is, At work, typically stuff like that can be installed on browsers without much permission, right? Mm-hmm. Install that on your browser. If you need to type an email, if you're sending an email to somebody you're cool with in the office and you guys kind of have your way of communicating, fine.
Right.
But if you're sending it out and it's a mass email, it's going to an audience that you don't communicate with on a regular basis, or you guys don't have that rapport established, then it needs to be as grammatically correct as possible.
Right.
Right. And so here's my tip. Open up that browser. Open up Google Docs. Open up Gmail or whatever. Type out what you need to say. Let Grammarly help you put it in that structure, right? Then copy and paste that to your Outlook or whatever your office uses, and then send your email, right? And the point there is also, the more that you do that and you see and you pay attention to what Grammarly is telling you, then you just start to pick that up.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, nice.
So that's my nerd tech practical tip right there. Tips to improve written communication. Spell check, or like you said, proofread, right? Write often, and use programs like Grammarly, which can help you improve your grammatical syntax when you're kind of writing. All right. So last little tip, then we got to wrap it up. And this is a big one. And we really just want to give a real high level view. Maybe not even give tips, but just talk about just the importance of it. How to communicate positive and negative feedback. We're going to do a whole episode on this, but I really just want to touch on it here because it's part of communication and effective communication. How to communicate positive and negative feedback.
You're talking about from the sender's perspective?
From either.
Okay.
Because you have to receive it too.
Okay.
And that's part of sending and receiving, to me, makes up communication.
Yeah. Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Okay. I haven't met anybody yet that likes to be told when they're wrong. and yet I want feedback. I mean, if I'm going over a cliff, I'd like for you to tell me.
Right.
True.
But I just don't like to hear where I'm wrong. So from I'll do from the receivers, I want to be told, I want to be helped, but I don't want to be looked down upon when you're correcting me.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I would say that's where the art in the art and the science of communication comes in. You got to be very strategic in how you give feedback, whether it's positive or negative, whether you're either the receiver or the sender of that information. Because again, when you say or do something that sends the wrong message, well, now you can't take that message back,
right? Because
that person is already going to now react based off of what you said or did. So you just got to be very strategic and patient. And again, this goes back to what we said earlier in knowing your audience, knowing the person that is either sending the information or giving it. If my wife tells me, hey babe, your haircut don't look the greatest. That sounds a lot different from her than, the guy down the street saying, man, your haircut is busted. So it's just, you got to take that context, but know who is talking to you and know who you're talking to. And
let's just be real about this. This bullet point is about feelings.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Totally.
It's feelings, man, because, if no matter who it is, you get positive feedback, you kind of perk up.
Yes.
If you give positive feedback, it kind of makes you feel good. Well, most people, unless you just have some sociopathic tendencies or something. I don't know. But if you give feedback, it makes you feel good, right? And then negative feedback, right?
Makes you feel.
Yeah. And honestly, like most, if not all negative feedback is really constructive criticism.
Yeah.
Because something was communicated to the person that gave you the negative feedback. You communicated something, whether you thought you did or not. You communicated something that made that person receive it in a negative manner about your character, about your personality, about whatever it is, your work ethic, your work on this project. Anything.
Yeah.
And they saw something and they were like, yeah, that's not cool. Or, hey, man, that's trash.
Yeah.
Now, the method in which they communicated it also, prompted your response.
Right.
But I think that's the big thing that we'll cover in that episode is you control your response to the criticism, no matter how it's given.
And if the criticism is valid, can I divorce my emotion from it?
Got to be honest with yourself.
Right.
Yes.
Got to be honest with
To
yourself.
give you an example, you know we're going to get in trouble with our wives on this show, right? Okay. No, you got brownie points last week. Okay, so we're going out.
Yeah.
And I get dressed. I think I'm smooth. I look in the mirror. I say, "Oh,
It's tight.
I'm killing this.
So I go to the garage to help my wife in the car.
Yeah.
I was still old school. I closed her car door. I got in the car and started my car. It's in the garage. She said, "Are you wearing that shirt?"
Wow.
I'm old now. I used to want to have arguments about it. I said, "Nope. This is my escort you to the car shirt." What color shirt do you think I should be wearing? She said blue. In the old days, I would have argued, right? Now, basically, what she told me was, your shirt is just toe up. She didn't say it that way.
Right.
But the constructive criticism was, you're not killing that shirt like you think you should be killing it.
Right.
But I trust her view.
Right.
Because if I do it right, she'd be like, boy, you
did your
doing
thing.
it.
Yeah.
And I like that, boy, you doing it.
Yeah.
So the constructive feedback, a lot of that can be taken, back to your point, if it is from somebody I know that has my best interest at heart,
Yes.
I'm good.
That intent.
Now, look, if just transfer it to work. If I'm a supervisor and I want to give you constructive feedback, if you know I have your best interest at heart, while it doesn't feel warm and fuzzy, you're not going to be too upset.
Right.
I'm trying to get you promoted. I'm trying to get you to the next level, get you more exposure. However, if I know you a snake,
Right.
Yeah. And this may even be a topic for another podcast, but leadership and communication as well, because how you would even know that that supervisor means you well is they've been giving you constructive criticism the whole time. They've been actively listening to you as an employee, so they know how to give and when to give you information. So when you get it, even if it's something that, you didn't turn in this project quite the way you should have, you're not taking it in a harmful way because you recognize that this person has my best interests at heart. And they're just telling me things, even though it may not be the most positive, so that I can improve.
okay.
All right. So just to wrap it up, this has been our our wide-ranging discussion on effective communication. Again, you can catch us on social media. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, @ThisIsBTC. And if you don't know what BTC stands for,
He made it up.
it stands for Beyond the Cubicle. We want to thank our special guest, Maya Morgan, for joining us here on the show, man. Our very first
Thank you, guys.
guest.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me.
Yes, one of our communication experts. For Big E,
Yes.
for Mayan, I'm Brian Montgomery. We'll catch you next week.